Mark Scar with guitarist Vinnie Moore from UFO. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on. And how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. It's good to talk to you. It's been a couple of years since you and I saw each other. It was in Sioux City on the Saxon tour, and that was a nice, loud, great show and a fun tour for you guys, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. Enjoyed playing with those guys. Great band and great bunch of guys, too.
Yeah, and a guy named Jared James Nichols was with you as well, and he's really taken off right now.
Yeah, he's doing well, and also great player and a great guy, too.
So this year it was announced, or I guess it was in 2018 perhaps, that the Last Orders, the 50th anniversary of UFO, is actually this year, 2019. And so you did some touring for that, and then unfortunately we lost Paul Raymond.
Yeah, that was really sad and totally unexpected. You know, we had just finished our UK tour, and we were on a high. You know, it went really, really well. And I think I was home like a week. Paul went back to England for a while. He was living in Germany. He stayed in England for a while and then went home. And, within a week, I woke up to that news. And, yeah, definitely not expected. But, I'm glad he went out on a high. He was really having a great time. He was happy. It was a great tour. 2 sold-out shows in London at the end, and I know he was very happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the entire time you've been with UFO, 16 years by my math, he's been, there the entire time and was a major songwriter for the band as well. A big loss.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, much to the surprise, pleasantly so, of many of us that have been following UFO all this time, is that the return of Neil Carter happened shortly after that. How did that all come about?
I think it just made total sense. There was nobody else. I think if we got a guy that didn't have a history with the band, it just wouldn't have felt right. And so, the idea occurred to Phil. And Neil had actually been at one of those 2 London shows that I just mentioned, mm-hmm. and really dug it, was happy to see us play. And, even the fans online were already saying, if they get anybody and they continue, it should be Neil. So it was kind of a no-brainer, really, I think. And so we approached him, and it was a really good thing that he happened to catch that show in London. And because he was jacked up about the show, and he really wanted to do it.
So he was just automatically receptive to it, which is great if that's the case.
Yeah, he was saying that had he not saw that show in London, he might have second guessed or not have been entirely sure if he wanted to do it. But seeing that show, was really important.
So you probably had something like a month or 6 weeks of rehearsals with Neil, and then you hit the ground running and did more dates over in Europe.
I think we did 5 rehearsals, actually.
Wow.
He was such a professional. He showed up totally prepared, and went online and watched a lot of our videos on YouTube from fans, and, that helped him out a lot. So he came in totally prepared. And we just went through the tunes, and, we probably didn't even need the 4 or 5 days we spent rehearsing.
We're talking with Vinnie Moore, and what would you say Neil has brought to the band that maybe wasn't there before?
Just a certain energy, he's very energetic, moves around a lot on stage. His rhythm guitar skills are really, really powerful and solid. At times it might be a little bit more heavy now than it was in the past, and I think he rejuvenated Phil in a sense.
From the video I've seen, it certainly looks like the case, and it looks like, above all else, he's having a blast.
Yeah, he is. He's really happy to be there, doing it.
So let's go back and talk about your time in UFO. I wanted to kind of break down the records. And you are here. You came in June of 2003, I think, or somewhere in that ballpark. And at that point in time, of course, Pete was still in the band, and you had Jason Bonham when you came in to do that record.
Right, yeah. When I got the offer to join the band, I had heard Jason was coming in, too. I was real excited about that. And, we just met up in Germany. Phil and I had traded some song ideas, or I had sent him some song ideas, actually. and we met up in Celle, Germany, which is outside of Hanover, and just started rehearsing and refining the tunes at the studio, and we just went right in and started recording that record.
And then Showtime came out, kind of a live document, kind of keepsake from that tour. And then a couple people come in and out. Chiefly, Jason goes out, and Andy Parker comes back in.
Right. Again, made total sense because, of course, he was the original drummer in the band. I guess Jason was doing the Led Zeppelin thing, so I don't blame him, and it was just great to have Andy come back in.
So you had Phil and Andy and Pete and the Monkey Puzzle, another great record.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah. And the lineup was the same for, I guess, maybe 4 or 5 years.
Yep, and then Pete departed, and kind of a more bluesy record came next, The Visitor.
Yeah, I'm really into blues, and Phil is really a blues guy. So I would send him lots of different song ideas, and he always seemed to bite on the bluesier ideas. So it kind of went in that direction, not intentionally. It just kind of sort of happened that way. We gravitated towards some bluesier stuff because that's what he chose.
And then Seven Deadly was next in 2012, followed by A Conspiracy of Stars, and somewhere in there, Rob DeLuca got involved.
Right. Yeah, I think he had been touring with us, and but hadn't played on any of the records. Mm-hmm. And I think he came in for A Conspiracy.
Right. And then the last thing was the Salentino cuts. All covers came out in 2017. How did those songs get cherry-picked?
Lots of drunken hours on the bus driving overnight, painlessly. That was very painful. I almost said painless, but I wish. It was very painful to actually whittle that down and get Phil to commit to songs. We'd come up with a list, and then the next morning it'd be gone. I don't know about this one, I don't know about that one. So, it was kind of torturous, actually.
But in the end, it came out. It sounds great.
Thank you. I think we picked 6 songs in advance, and we didn't even have the final ones until we actually got into the studio in Hanover.
Wow. Okay. So that came out a
lot of uncertainty and a lot of things coming together at the end.
Yeah. And that was probably a little bit nerve-wracking.
It was, but it's kind of typical with UFO. When you're doing a record, you never know, actually, what you're exactly going to be doing, There's always uncertainty and last-minute type of stuff.
Yeah, and that can be good, too, because it keeps it kind of interesting.
Yeah, in a way, definitely.
Once again, we're talking with Vinnie Moore from UFO, and coming up is the U.S. portion of the Last Orders Tour. I think you start October 9th, and you're going to be crisscrossing the United States. Yep, and you got the Mega Cruise. That'll be fun.
We're not actually doing the cruise. We're doing one of the pre-party gigs.
Okay.
And then we're doing a cruise next year, February 27th to March 2nd.
Okay.
Forget the name of it, though. I can't even keep track of the names of all these cruises.
Right. Who knew when we were kids that there were going to be rock and roll cruises to go on?
Rock on boats. I love doing it, though.
I think it's neat. I'll have to do one sometime.
Definitely. There's so many other great artists on this one we're doing. Paul Rogers, Roger Daltrey, a lot of my favorites.
Very cool. And also on this tour, you've got some great warm-up acts. You've got Armored Saint, you've got Blue Oyster Cult, and you've got Last in Line.
Right. I think with BOC, I think it's a co-headlining thing. But the other acts are opening acts, and yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. We've played shows with Blue Oyster Cult in the past, and that's a great band. And in fact, they were like the first concert I ever saw when I was a kid. Blue Oyster Cult and Rainbow at the Spectrum in Philadelphia, and I've always liked those guys, and they're really cool to hang out with too.
Nice. So you mentioned that there is at least the cruise in 2020. What other plans are there going forward? Because I know Phil sounds like he's ready to retire. Or maybe not, retirement's not a good word, but do whatever he's going to do next.
Exactly. I don't know at this point what's going to happen next year besides the cruise. There may be some more UFO shows. I mean, everybody wants to do more, and Phil is the guy that's kind of like, thinking I've done this for long enough in my life, and maybe it's time to move on.
What an incredible run.
Yeah, definitely. Even with me in the band, I mean, I've been in the band 16 years. I never thought it would go that long. When I first joined, I was kind of thinking maybe this will go 3 or 5 years. Never would have imagined 10 in my wildest dreams, and here we are at 16, so you just never know.
Nope, so you can't plan for the future, but I'd be remiss if I didn't talk to you about, you mentioned before we started that you're working on another solo record. Yeah,
it's totally finished, and right now we're working on the artwork, and I'm looking at October 9th for releasing that also. It's on my own label again, as the last one was. And I definitely want to get it out like when the UFO tour starts.
Perfect. If people want to find you online or UFO online, how can they go about doing that?
They can go to VinnieMoore.com for my solo stuff, or Facebook, my Facebook page. The UFO site, man, Google it. I can never remember it. It's kind of complicated. It's a weird URL, but, if you search UFO the band, of course you can find that, and you can find our Facebook page and Twitter.
There you go, all over the place. Vinnie, as always, thank you so much. We always appreciate it.
Oh, thank you, man. Great talking to you, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
For Vinnie Moore, I'm Mark Scarr.